All right, this is the second part. If you didn't see the first part, you should look for Men and Sex #1. And I'm talking about the struggles of human sexuality and how men deal with those and how all that happens. So this second half is about how do we get healing from the negative patterns that men can engage in. And so part of that is going back to seeing how God originally made things and then knowing what God can do to fix things. So God made men and women to be together. He made women different than men. And he gave men this ability to bond quickly through sexual intimacy. So how can that be reclaimed? In the same way it can be broken, it can be reclaimed. Not by the same process, but by going back to who God intended people to be. See, a lot of people try to change this pattern. A lot of men will try to change this pattern by guilting themselves and by depriving themselves of something. But you can't change who you are by deprivation. You can't take something out without putting something else back in, as Jim Stockel on our staff says all the time. You have to replace. So how do you replace an addiction to pornography or sexual promiscuity? What do you replace that with? And you replace that with a healthy view of who you are and a healthy connection to God. And so even in 12-step programs, they talk about your connection to your higher power. But in the context we're talking about Jesus, that God in the flesh, and having a relationship with God through Jesus, which means that I understand that I'm broken and that my worldview is twisted by living selfishly, by what we call sin, because I want to live for myself when I don't know God, okay? So let me make that practical with this example, this understanding of who I am in relationship to who God is. If I don't know that I'm loved deeply and passionately and unconditionally down to my very core, I'll have to find that somewhere else. And the only one who can love me that way is God. See, the key to men and women being together is their proximity to the primary love relationship in their life. The primary love relationship is the God who made us. And all other relationships are secondary to that. And the closer I am to that love, and the closer my spouse is to that love that God has for us, it's like a little triangle. As we move up that toward God, our intimacy with each other is grown and is built. But as I find other alternatives, then I move down that paradigm. I move away from God and I move away from the person that God called me to be with. So I'm moving outward and down and away from God. It's a simple triangular paradigm, but at the end of the day, here's the question. How do I get that kind of love? Because it's the kind of love we all long for, but we look for it in other relationships. We look for a girlfriend or a wife or our friends or our boss. We look for them to give us what only God can give us. Because every human relationship has two people in it who are broken, who are in need of redemption. And God wants to wrap us up in that. As we get closer to Him, we understand that we are loved, whether our spouse likes us in the morning or not, whether we've left our socks on the floor or not. That there's nothing that we can do that can take us away from that love. And once we understand we're loved unconditionally, it frees us to be in relationship. But as long as I'm living in this endless cycle of trying to fulfill that desire, that need that all human beings have inside of them, to be loved unconditionally and without end, as long as I seek that somewhere else, I move away from the one source that can provide it. And then I put unrealistic expectations on my spouse as a married person, on my boss, on my career. I put all kinds of expectations about how they'll inflate my ego and make me feel better, but at the end of the day, there's not enough money, and there's not enough fame, and there's not enough gratification, and there's not enough applause to make life really count. You can live in Hollywood and you can get all of the Oscars and awards and Golden Globes and Emmys in the world, but here's the deal. At the end of the day, you go home and you stick them on the fireplace mantle, and you're still you. And you wonder if anybody loves you. Years ago, Sally Field got an award, and she said in one of the more famous speeches, a kind of a strange line. She said, you like me right now for just this one moment. You really like me. And most of us just don't know that God really likes us, that he doesn't think we're garbage and he doesn't think we're a mistake. And men, if you're going out there looking for these things to cover over the places where you feel inadequate or weak, or you think you have to prove and earn, it won't work. And you know it because you've done it. And the primary relationship that has to be rebuilt is with God. And then you have to start a life of conversation with this God and say, so this is the person you've given me in my life. For you married people, this is the person you've given me. And show me, let me see how they're wonderfully made. And let me cherish them. And let me try to love them the way you do. I know I'll fail. But I want to be patient and kind and not envious. I don't want to keep remembering the past and bringing it up all the time. I don't want to keep a shopping list of all the things that they've done wrong. Because if I don't have that kind of love, I don't have anything. And that is the kind of love that you find in Jesus. I'm not talking about a church. I'm not talking about a building. I'm talking about Jesus. So the beginning of that healing is understanding my primary relationship of love is with God and then with my spouse. We'll see if we do a part 3, but that's a good starting place. Thanks for your questions. You can always post them on our blog at exchange@arcadiapress.org.